The American Cotton Shippers Association, also known as ACSA, is a trade association primarily made up of cotton merchants, founded in 1924. ACSA members manage the majority of the world's cotton trade, providing services of merchandising, delivery logistics, and risk management to their customers. ACSA will be holding its 101st annual convention in Palm Beach, Florida in June of 2025. For more information on ACSA, including their convention, view their website or Twitter account at Cotton Shippers.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to our 2024 year-end edition of Cotton Grower Magazine's Cotton Companion podcast. I'm Jim Stedman, editor of Cotton Grower. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and colleague, Beck Barnes. And together, we'd like to thank the American Cotton Shippers Association for kicking off this episode and for their continued support throughout 2024. So as we record this final episode for the year, we are sitting 1 week before Christmas and 2 weeks away from another new year. And for the life of me, Beck, I have absolutely no idea where this year went. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but the years just seem to be getting shorter and shorter as time goes by faster and faster. I know every year brings some change, and I'm sure nearly everyone has seen their share of it this year. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And from Cotton's perspective, let's say for sure, it's sometimes just been downright frustrating.
Yeah. It has been. It's had its ups and downs. I know, like me, Jim, you have interviewed more growers more farmers than you remember over the years. And one thing the older guys I've the opportunity to interview over the years, they always say is that no 2 years are alike. And
Right.
so, for a lot of our listeners will take comfort in that because 2024 was challenging, but next year, certain to be different, certain to have some surprises, hopefully for the better in the next growing season.
Yeah, well, I think it's safe to say right now, as we're recording it, what happens over the next couple of weeks here in 2024 will certainly have an impact one way or the other on 2025. Because over the past couple of weeks, back as you know, I've talked with a lot of different folks within the industry. I've talked with growers, economists, consultants, extension specialists, and others, trying to get a handle on where planted cotton acres might end up for our annual cotton acreage survey that will show up in the January issue. I'm going to save that projected number to share until our first podcast of 2025, but it's clear there are so many different factors impacting our market and our growers that trying to predict what 2025 will look like right now is very much similar to throwing darts at a dartboard. And likewise, I think a related level of uncertainty about 2025 exists at the ag retail level. And we're going to turn our focus there for this episode. We're going to bring in the experts from our sister publication, CropLife, editor Eric Sfiligoj and group editor Lara Sowinski, to provide the retail perspective after a tough 2024, and to share some thoughts about some familiar companies on the annual CropLife 100 list.
Yeah, that's right, Jim. It's going to be a great conversation there. But first, we want to welcome the Cotton Board back to the podcast for a sponsored message. Now, our colleague and custom content manager, Hillary Wynn, had an opportunity to visit recently with Alyssa Ogden. Alyssa is a Cotton Board member and cotton producer out in New Mexico. And we want to share that conversation with you right now.
Hi, this is Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager with Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. My guest today is Alyssa Ogden, Cotton Board member and a cotton producer in New Mexico. Alyssa, welcome to the program.
So I am a farmer, third-generation farmer in southeastern New Mexico, and I was thrilled with the opportunity to be the member representative from New Mexico on the Cotton Board. And so I've been on the Cotton Board a little more than 7 years. And when I went on the Cotton Board, they assigned me to the Consumer Marketing Committee, which was kind of a shock because I've never done anything like that. But it's been a wonderful learning experience. And in August, I just completed my 2-year term as the chairman of the committee. So when I received a phone call asking if I would like to go to one of these pop-up shopping events that I had heard about but never experienced, I was thrilled.
Can you go ahead and tell us about this Cotton Incorporated sponsored pop-up shop that you recently attended? What did you see and learn there?
So the pop-up shop was with Cotton Incorporated and Revolve, which is usually an online shopping experience. And so they try to do in-person shopping events. So they went to Dallas and coordinated their weekend event with the parent weekend at SMU. And so they did a lot of advertising in advance. And when there were a few of us from the Cotton Board and Jenners also who were there, we walk up to the building and we see the first thing on the building is, Shop Cotton and the Cotton Incorporated logo and a full house of people in there shopping. And we were there on Saturday. And so to see our logo and the Shop Cotton on the window was a great experience for us, seeing so many people walking in. And then when we walked in, the logo was used throughout the venue where they had the event.
So, can you tell us what makes you excited about Cotton Incorporated's consumer marketing efforts?
Well, what we're doing is trying to make it more appealing to people to purchase garments, clothing, bedding, different things that are made with cotton primarily. The thing about the Revolve event is the clothing had to be at least 60% cotton and denim had to be at least 90% cotton. So, as a cotton farmer, producer, I'm always glad to see garments that are very stylish, very comfortable to wear, that are primarily cotton products. And it makes me easier to sell my product when there is a demand for it.
Thank you so much, Elisa, for taking the time to talk with us today. For more information on Cotton Incorporated's consumer marketing efforts, please visit cottonboard.org/consumers.
Okay, as always, a big thanks to our friends at the Cotton Board, as well as AXA, who we heard from earlier, for their support and their messages throughout 2024.
That's right. Generally, the end of the year is a relatively slow time for news as everyone's settling in for the holidays and the new year. And from the university perspective, we're getting ready to take a couple weeks break and things like that. But there are a couple of items of interest that we feel like we need to share with you as this year comes to a close.
Yeah, Jim. If it had just been a quiet weekend here. Wish that this development had not made headlines at the end of last week. Here we're potting on December 17, and here in recent days, following word from Washington D.C. over just this past weekend that a short-term assistance program for U.S. agriculture had been excluded from deliberations on the overall government funding package. The National Cotton Council issued a statement strongly opposing any supplemental spending package that lacks meaningful short-term assistance for farmers. As the council stated, the failure of Congress to provide short-term support to our producers will mean that many farm families will go out of business in 2025, leading to devastating impacts throughout the rural economy. The council estimates show that cotton growers stand to lose as much as $300 an acre on the 2024 harvest due to soaring production costs and low market prices. The NCC was just one of many agricultural commodity groups expressing similar displeasure and urging legislators to search for an immediate solution to the situation.
Yeah, excuse me just a minute. I think I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this one, Beck, because we seem to have a track record that as soon as we say something about a certain topic on this podcast, everything turns around and happens. Whether it's rain or thing like that. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that we are I don't want to call it a curse, but our track record holds a little bit on this. I would love to see this squared away here within the next couple of weeks, and so would the rest of the cotton world.
We're putting the companion jinx on this.
That's right.
This Farm Bill preliminary package that they put together that excluded us.
That's right.
Now, switching gears, Jim, it's time for new cotton variety announcements for 2025, the most wonderful time of the year. And starting this past weekend at Delta Pine's annual New Product Evaluator, or NPE Summit in Nashville, which you attended.
I did.
Following a growing season where Delta Pine's NPE growers evaluated 9 potential varieties on their own farms, the NPE Summit was just one of many agricultural commodity groups expressing similar displeasure and urging legislators to search for an immediate solution to the situation. The company's class of 25 consists of 4 varieties that made the cut for introduction into 2025. 2 are Bollgard 3 Thrive on Cotton with XtendFlex technology, or B3 TXF varieties, and the others are Bollgard 3 with XtendFlex technology, or B3XF varieties. Easy for you to say. Now, those are in no particular order. DP 2537 B3 TXF. This is a mid to full year maturity variety that will be the latest maturing B3 TXF product in the Delta Pine lineup, targeted for the lower Mid-South and upper Southeast markets. DP 2522 NR, that's nematode resistant B3 TXF, is an early to mid maturity variety offering resistance to both reniform nematodes and bacterial blight, offering a good fit on reniform nematode infested fields across the coastal bend of South Texas, the lower Mid-South, and in the Southeast. Next, we got DP 2525 B3XF. This is an early to mid maturity variety resistant to bacterial blight and moderately tolerant to verticillium wilt for the northern high plains of Texas. With yield performance on par with well-known standards DP 1822XF and DP 1820B3XF. And lastly, we have DP 2541B3XF. This is a mid to full maturity variety resistant to bacterial blight and moderately tolerant to verticillium wilt, with improved yield performance in the higher yielding environments of the southern high plains of Texas. Now, probably maybe easier for you to digest if you were to read these things, and you can find more information on this Delta Pine Cap class of 25 online at cottongrower.com.
And of course, this is just really the first shot from the seed companies in terms of introductions and talking about new varieties for 2025. As all the companies are, looking at the data for this year, evaluating which varieties look really good. And I'm sure that over the course of the next couple of months, you're going to be hearing reports from us on a fairly regular basis on new varieties coming from the other companies. So again, make sure you keep your ear to the podcast, but also keep an eye on the website, cottongrower.com, because as soon as that information comes in, it'll also get posted there, ready for you to take a look at. So now it's our pleasure to welcome our resident ag retail experts from Cotton Grower's sister publication, CropLife, to the Cotton Companion. And we're talking, of course, about Eric Sfiligoj, who's editor of CropLife, and Lara Sowinski, who's group editor of the CropLife group within Meister Media Worldwide. Thanks for joining us for our year-end discussion. It's always nice to have such learned colleagues join in to share their insights and expertise about a key component of the entire ag industry that our growers, quite honestly, couldn't operate without.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Jack. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Happy to have you. So for starters, tell our listeners just a little bit about CropLife, publication's background, mission, the audiences you focus on, and some of the activities that you folks bring to the market.
Well, CropLife is an older publication, started out back in the 1890s as American Fertilizer, and morphed throughout the years, eventually was known as Farm Chemicals magazine throughout the 1930s to around 2000. And then we adopted the name CropLife to represent the expanding marketplace. Because again, back in the day, if you were an ag retail outlet, you did a lot of crop protection products, a little bit of fertilizer, and not much else. But of course, as we got into the 90s and the cropping systems became something, seed became more important, custom application became more important. So the magazine morphed into what it is now called CropLife, which it has been since 2001. And again, we're the magazine that goes to the ag retailers, the farm stores, the cooperatives, the dealerships that actually sell inputs and services, provide services to the grower community. And again, myself, I've been on board for about 25 years, and I will let my partner Laura speak for her background and how she came to be with us. So,
Well, thank you, Eric. All due respect to Eric, he's the senior member of our CropLife Media Group. He's been here a lot longer than I have. I've been here, it'll be 3 years in March, so not quite 3 years, but come from a global food supply chain background, imports, exports, cold chain management.
Mm.
Um, really started uh, when 2011, when the Food Safety Modernization Act came into effect, is when I was working for a couple business publications, again, focused on the global food supply chain. So, really an exciting time to um, be there because it was really, to me, um, when it started to really connect the food chain truly, like from farm to fork. We talked about that, but the true connections weren't there. I mean, it was a handoff. It was a handoff, and um, for instance, if there was a recall or if there was a need to track or trace, it was really hard to do that. So I think 2011, I really started to see, despite, what was truly an impact on the industry and some growing pains and adoption pains with those regs, it really, to me, um, was kind of the fuel behind the adoption of ag tech. I really saw that, and I saw, the great strides that um, supported food safety, compared to like where we're at now, what we're able to do now, what we're able to see. And so coming to the CropLife group a couple years ago was super, super exciting. It really enlightened me to what was happening on the ag, at the farm level. And geez, since I've been here, it's just, I mean, just the last year alone, and I think about really how AI is coming to the forefront and stuff. I mean, the things that we're able to do and see and capture, and what's changing, and what the next even 12 to 18 months looks like. Look like it's crazy. It's pretty exciting. So certainly happy to be here and team up with Eric and Dan, our other member here. And it's great. It's great.
Well, that's wonderful. Uh, let's kind of jump into the meat here a little bit. Over the course of the last couple of years, we've watched growers in our market, and Eric, I'm sure probably the same thing in the Midwest, obviously, uh, wrestle with multiple headwinds and obstacles. We've drought and natural disasters, lower commodity prices, higher input prices, and certainly in cotton's case, increased production competition from Brazil and decreased demand for cotton products globally. How's the current market situation impacting retailers? What types of adjustments have they had to make in terms of their product offerings and customer service? And generally, from your sense right now, how are they feeling as a whole going into 2025?
Well, going into 2025, Jim, I mean, the last part of your question first, the confidence level among growers. I know our friends at Purdue University do a survey on that each month, and I know up until election day, they were feeling pretty down. And then after the election, we had some certainty, at least on that front. So I think Laura and I just reported that the confidence level among the growers went up about 30 points from the October survey to November's. So the feeling among them is that, they're still cautious. Cautiously optimistic is a phrase I hear often in the grower community. But again, and I bring this up every year. Every year I hear this going into the fall, everybody's feeling very pessimistic or they're very cautious. And then as we get into the spring and things, if the weather plays out nice, if commodity prices start going back up, if there seems to be a bump in demand for things like ethanol or maybe even sustainable aviation fuel, some new market is starting to pick up some steam, then the confidence level goes back up fairly quickly. Um, but, in terms of how ag retailers are doing, I mean, we have for 41 years now, CropLife, as the magazine, has done a survey where we talk to the top 100 ag retailers in the country, cooperatives and dealerships. And we do a survey every year where we get their perspective on the marketplace and kind of gauge how they're doing sales wise, profit wise, et cetera, and so on. And I know that, not too long ago, as we were coming out of COVID, there was a lot of activity in pricing and crop inputs were, well, I guess, they were more expensive. Services were more expensive because supply and demand, we were coming off of a down cycle in 20 and 2021. But in 2022, everything kind of, it was the perfect storm in the right way. The profits that year, the CropLife 100, there's, like I say, it's 100 retailers that we survey. 99 of the 100 in 2022 said that their sales or their profits were up year over year from 2021. So again, setting the bar that high, then, I mean, I was very happy writing that report because everybody was happy, but I thought, well, that's a high bar. It'll be hard to hit again. And yeah, the last couple of years, things have moderated. And, we just did the 2024 Crop Life 100, and the revenues were for the ag retailers top 100, $43.3 billion. Now that sounds like a very impressive number, which it is, but that was off about 3.5 billion from 2023's figure. So again, it was a drop of like 7% or year over year in revenue. And profitability was just as bleak. As I mentioned, in 2022, 77% of the ag retailers in the CropLife 100 said that their profit margin was higher year over year for that year. And in 2024, it was only 51. I'm sorry, it was only 28% uh, said their profits were higher. So again, we've dropped from 77% to 28. So from three-fourths down to just about a quarter of the market now is profitable, at least in 2024. So how they're adapting to this, of course, is you're seeing a lot more activity in the traditional crop inputs, the macronutrients, particularly nitrogen, crop protection products that have always been utilized in the marketplace, seed varieties people are used to that they trust, the hybrids or the cropping systems like the Enlist system, for instance. What you're not seeing, again, what with big drop off has happened is there's been a lot of activity in ag technology, AI, autonomous vehicles, stuff like that. But in terms of sales for 2024, that didn't really translate very well for ag retailers. Their ag tech sales year over year were down about 500 million from the year before. And again, I've heard many growers and ag retailers tell me that when revenues are tight and margins are tight, the investment in new technology is probably the first thing to go off the table for most growers. So hoping, in 25 we see maybe a little reverse of that. That there's still an incredible amount of buzz on things like AI, and I know we just did our buying intentions survey recently, and I was kind of surprised how many ag retailers expect to invest in things like AI in 2025. So fingers crossed, maybe, just maybe, we'll start to see if the markets, perform well, that maybe by the summertime, we'll start seeing some investment in some of these high tech things. So Laura, add to that what you will.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to point out a few bright spots as I was going through Eric's analysis of this year's CropLife 100. Um, as he mentioned, everything pretty much was down. However, he rightly noted in his editorial that um, in 2024, fertilizer prices dropped back to what was normal. So they were maybe artificially elevated prior to that with supply chain snags, et cetera. But, so that in itself was okay, that looks good. And then he kind of, took a look at outside of what would be the four major crop inputs and services that we look at with the survey, which would be fertilizer, crop protection, seed, and custom application. So, where are the bright spots? And he noted that the survey also showed that for the 2024 growing season, biologicals, adjuvants, and micronutrients all performed well. So that was nice to see as well. So while on the surface we can look at this and be like, geez, let's turn the page on 24 and look ahead to 25. There are some good things to take away. And to me, it looks like there's more diversity in the market. People are looking and they're also becoming more prudent. It's like, okay, we have to acknowledge, yeah, it was a tough year for sure. In the conversations I've been having the last month or so, I'm hearing kind of like, yeah, we're taking the time to really take a harder look, if you will, at how we operate, what we do, kind of finding the pennies. Let's make the little tweaks here and there across the board, and let's kind of get ourselves in a better spot. So when things start to improve, which they will, that we're running a tight ship, and that was nice to hear as well. So. And then one last thing, Eric did mention the Purdue CME group and the survey, the most recent one that came out on December 3rd. So just like the stock market, no one likes uncertainty. So post election, it was at least like, okay, at least now we know what the administration, who that's going to be, what we might expect. And certainly, uh, partly fueling that, you know, that big jump, and now we feel a lot better. Like, so what's behind that was feelings that between the tax rates and the environmental regs, those two things alone will probably be a little easier to stomach going forward. So that was also, again, kind of giving this like a better sheen on things. So we don't go to bed sad. It does some something to look forward to. So
Yeah.
yeah, bright spots.
Well, I should expect I expect no less from you two coming prepared with all of your figures from your specific percentages and dollar figures from your report. I'm impressed. You two are impressive. One thing that stuck out to me, Eric, you're talking about 40 plus billion dollars in revenue in the ag retail space. That was just last year. I don't want to speak out of turn. That was just last year. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's insane to me. The might of agriculture in our rural communities, the number of dollars that are turning over, keeping people employed at these outlets, at these brick and mortar stores. It's amazing, and we
And
we've
that is a
spoken in this episode earlier about some farm bill developments that came out earlier this week. But it's like, man, this is an important industry in our rural communities, no doubt about it.
And that's a good point, Beck, because again, when I first started doing the CropLife 100, when I joined the magazine back in 2000, the revenue for all the CropLife 100, I think, barely topped 10 billion. So again, it's gone from 10 billion in 24 years to over 40. I mean, that is an incredible amount of revenue that has gone into that that segment of the business over that 24-year time span.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane. Oh, before we leave the Crop Life 100 behind, uh, quickly, who was number one this year in our rank?
That was Nutrien. They've been number one for a couple of years. As of 2024, again, up until 2024, there were 7 companies that in the CropLife 100 that had revenues of over $1 billion. That's the top end revenue range we have is over $1 billion. And again, that category didn't exist 20 years ago. But yeah, it's been 7. But in 2024, 2 large cooperatives in Indiana, Ceres Systems and Co-Alliance, merged to form a company called Keystone. So they made it into the top the $1 billion club. So there are now 8 companies out of the 100 that have revenues over $1 billion each year. But yeah, Nutrien's number one still.
Yeah, shout out Nutrient. Okay, all right. So farmers that we talk with, gang, over the years, they always say they need and they want their retailers to be partners. They don't want to feel like customers when they go in. They want to be partners. So, is there a similar perspective from the retailers, or do they think that a partnership like that works much better in their relationships in their rural communities?
And the short answer to that is yes, without a doubt. I mean, the retailers recognize that, again, I know it was, I think, about 10 or so years ago that Farmers Business Network sort of started this online uh, retail service. And, I know there was plenty of worry among traditional ag retailers that the brick and mortar stores would get replaced by online, sort of what you've seen with like what Amazon has done to some places like Sears or, J.C. Penney over the years. Um, and they realized right away that one of the key differences is that service capability that the ag retailers offer to their growers. They're in the community. They go to the same churches. They're friends with their growers. In some cases, some of the smaller retailers I've talked to, I mean, they're godparents to the children of their growers. So that relationship, they realized that needed to stay strong. So the retailers, the progressive ones that I've talked to over the last 10 years or so, they have really cultivated that relationship, uh, business model, and just basically just continued it. And they have been able to fend off the online only offerings for the most part. I mean, like I say, 10 years ago, everyone was worried about, online sales replacing brick and mortar stores. And this past year, when we did our survey, that I think I had one person out of the 100 mention that as a concern going into 2025. They were much more concerned with prices and labor and water issues and regulations. Those things finished much higher. And like I said, I think, one out of 99 mentioned, online sales as a threat. So it is a very important aspect of today's ag retail community to have that relationship with their growers. Yes.
Eric, just one quick question, and we'll leave the CropLife 100 behind here. What as I recall going through it, there are 4 criteria that you use in terms of evaluating the retailers in the top 100. What are those criteria?
Well, I mean, again, we're looking at 4 different categories for the CropLife 100 rankings that
Mhm.
we call them. There's sales in fertilizer, there's sales in crop protection products, there's sales in seed, and there's custom application services, which then include ag tech or precision ag technologies. So those are the 4 criteria. But we also do track, things like grain revenue, grain elevator revenue. We also
Mhm.
track fuel. I think those are the only 2 other categories that we track, but we don't use those to rank the 100 because there are several cooperatives that do almost double, triple business in grain elevator revenue as they do in crop inputs and services. So if we included those numbers in our list, we'd be only capturing a very small portion, about a third, but it would radically change who ranked where in the top 100. So again, we keep track of that information. We kind of do separate stories on those during the year, but we don't include those in our formal rankings. It's only those other 4 categories I mentioned.
Mhm. Well, looking back, excuse me, um, I know talking to growers in the cotton market, COVID changed a lot about how growers and retailers and companies conducted business, and I think you kinda touched a little bit on that. Um, what did retailers learn from that experience, and what do you think they would like growers to know and understand the most about their business today?
The short answer to that, Jim, is again, before COVID, everybody had this philosophy, and at least in retail, most of them I talked to, okay, I won't say everybody, but most of the people I talked to in retail had the just in time model, is what they followed. They would basically have inputs in their warehouse. They come in on a Monday, and by Thursday, they'd be going back out to someone because they were ordering what they knew they had an order for this, so they would have it just in time. The grower wanted it by Thursday, they would have it by Thursday, and that was the model they followed. But then when COVID came along and you had all these supply chain disruptions, most of the retailers that I knew that were progressive about things, they were doing this more like a just in case model, where basically that, okay, if they had so many tons of fertilizer that went out this month, a year ago, they would make sure they'd have that plus maybe a little extra on hand, and they'd put it in the warehouse and they'd keep it there just in case somebody would come in and order it from them in the last minute. Um, that has become the prevailing model as far as I'm aware. Even now we're past COVID a couple of years, but this just in case model has replaced just in time. So that means these guys are much more forward thinking in what they're ordering, when they're ordering, what they're getting in, and the supply for their growers to make sure that they have everything on hand that they need. So that's the biggest change that I have seen since COVID. So, Laura?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good question, Jim, and let me just add to what Eric was saying. Certainly just in time, and not just in the ag space. Honestly, you can look up at just about any sector. Just in time, it's hard to really adhere to that anymore. But just in case, while that understandably, had to take place and build up buffer stock. That's where, getting back to what I was saying earlier about taking a look at your operations and the way you manage your farm. You still want to tweak that inventory. You still want to make sure that your fleet and your transportation, how you're doing that, how you're managing that, your finances, the whole thing. This is why, taking a look at because the risks and the certainly supply chain, whether, we're looking at future tariffs, transportation disruptions, weather events, whatever it is. It's like, how do we put in place a really nimble, resilient supply chain to support what we need to do without, having a warehouse full of stock? I mean, that's inventory that's sitting. That's not healthy for the bottom line. So it's finding that right mix. But yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. Well, obviously, we're sitting here today. We're talking on the Cotton Companion podcast. Uh, but you two have your own weekly video segment called Retail Week that has been going for how long now, Eric?
About 9.5 years, actually. We just passed our 500th episode. So,
Yes. Tell it
Long
just, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Laura.
No, I was gonna say that's just a long time, no matter what way you look at it.
God, it makes us, Beck and I feel like we're just, we're cooking right along. This is episode 178 for the podcast.
you'll catch up to us in about 4 years. Good job.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Yeah, we will catch you sooner or later. Uh, what kind of response are you getting to that? What kind of information are you aiming to provide to the audience? And really and truly, Eric, this one just for you. How's it changed your life when you go to farm shows and meetings?
All right. Well, what we try to do, of course, you can get your news from any source in this day and age. I mean, on the internet, we're bombarded daily with newsletters and press releases and other bits of information from traditional news sources and online news sources. So, what Laura and I try to do is, again, we realize that folks can get their news many different places. We try to give like a couple of highlights from the week that are important to the ag retail community, and we try to present it in a little more of an entertaining way, if you will, going back and forth, kind of a little bantering back and forth, sort of like the point counterpoint of old days. And then, of course, at the end of the segment, we have something that we call Fun with Numbers, where I present a number and I give Miss Laura a couple of options, three, actually four. The fourth one's usually just a throwaway funny one, but and then she has to pick which of the three things, which of the three answers is the correct one for that number. And again, the response from the audience is it's actually quite surprising because I know when we first started this, 9.5 years ago, I mean, we were kind of trying to do it every week, and people were kind of getting used to it, and our numbers were okay. But then I remember there was one year where my former co-host Paul Shrimp and we were both traveling. We couldn't do one, and we didn't do a video that week. And boy, the hate mail we got from people saying, "Where's my video? Why are you not giving me my video?" It was sort of like then we realized, all right, we've arrived. People are now expecting this to be with their sitting in the morning at the table on Saturday when the sends first go out, that they're looking forward to this video. We better give them what they want. So we haven't missed a video since, and it's changed my life a little bit because I'll be going to a trade show, and people will come up to me and they're like, "Hey, Eric, hey, how's it going?" They'll be talking to me, and I'll be thinking, in my head, who is this person? How do I remember? How did I meet them? And eventually I kind of give up, and I'm like, yeah, how did we meet? And they're like, "Oh, I never met you before, but I watch you every week." So it has given me a little bit of notoriety. It's a little overwhelming at times. I mean, I've seen TV celebrities get it recognized in public before, and I never expected to get that kind of treatment. I mean, part of the reason I became a journalist is I wanted to be the one taking the pictures, not being in front of the camera. But I have been in front of the camera for 9.5 years, and I guess it'll continue. So.
Well, I'm gonna chime in because I've seen it happen. It's like surrounded by people, and it's like, "Will you sign my Crop Life magazine?" He's a superstar. I can, stand in the background and try and usher him to his next appointment, but yeah, he's a star of the show for sure.
Yeah, I haven't had to hire bodyguards yet, thank God.
Well, I was about to ask, do you have any stalkers that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Although, at my age and this point of life, I suppose I might find that flattering versus than scary, but who knows?
Well, I'll ask this question: if any of our listeners out there, if we're growers or not, retail, if they want to check out Retail Week for themselves, where can they find it?
Well, actually, it goes out with a Saturday send of CropLife e-news, and
Okay.
then
Okay.
also then if they went to our website www.croplife.com, they could find the link to this week's video and also an archive going back a couple of years as well. So.
Yeah. Well, for anybody who's listening and just really, really curious about what Eric and Laura look like, next time you might go to a meeting, you might be able to see these folks and want to go, rush up to see them. I would urge you to go check out Retail Week. There's a reason Beck and I do this as a podcast, not as a video segment. So anyway, we're happy to give you the plug on that. But anyway, I want to say, it's safe to say that farmers in general, and cotton growers in particular this year, and ag retailers have had a very memorable 2024, and not always in the most positive way. Um, but as I was reminded at a cotton industry meeting last weekend, there's always hope for next year. So thanks so much, guys, for a great discussion. We're going to keep our fingers crossed for a good year for retailers and an even better year for our growers as we move into 2025.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you,
Thank-
Beth.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Beck. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
time.
Thank you, guys.
So, all right, that's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to say thanks again to our CropLife colleagues and ag retail experts, Eric Sfiligoj and Lara Sowinski, for joining us for today's discussion. Thanks also to the American Cotton Shippers Association for their continued support and sponsorship, and to the Cotton Board and board member Alyssa Ogden for this episode's special segment. And as always, we want to thank you, dear listener, for joining us and for your support during the 2024 year. As always, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did like what you've heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your farming friends and colleagues about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
Cotton Companion podcast is produced twice monthly by Tyler Hatch and Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. I'm Jim Stedman, he's Beck Barnes, and we'll be back with you in a few weeks as we kick off 2025 with the next episode of the Cotton Companion. Till then, best wishes to all of you for a very happy holiday and New Year. And as always, please stay safe.
Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made it fun.